What's up, what's up? This is Mang. I'm going to do Castle Raider 101. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Basically, I'm going to cover the basics of raiding in EverQuest, and that's a lot of people working together to kill the hardest monsters. Try and talk about how to be an asset to the raid team. We'll cover expectations, conduct, setup, tools, some advanced tactics. We're trying to cover things that every raider should know, not class specific. And if you're new, this amount of information will probably be overwhelming. There's a big learning curve. It does get easier. Just, try and soak up as much as you can. Alright, right off the bat, who are we? We're Castle Alliance. Castle is a guild that's been on p99 Green for a long time, and we have an alliance forged with many other guilds, including Ancient Blood, Akatsuki, Black Lotus, Freya's Chariot, Senpai. Sometimes we do joint raids with Safe Space, and we split the loot with them when we do that. But for all intents and purposes, being in Castle is the same as being in any Alliance guild. Not Safe Space. They're not actually an Alliance guild, but we joint raid with them. Let's go over raider expectations and conduct. Raiding is optional, but if you do choose to raid, then you're accountable. Raiding is voluntary at your own schedule, with your own desired level of commitment. We don't have a raid attendance requirement, but the more you raid, the more DKP you earn, and DKP is used to bid to earn raid gear. Your actions can impact dozens of other players, in either a good way or a bad way. You can wipe the raid, you can save the raid. So the goal here is to be dependable, prepared, and communicative. Know what's expected of you and your class for a given target, and ask questions if you don't know where to go, what to do. Discord is how we coordinate raids. A lot of our communication happens on our Discord server, discord.gg/castlegreen. There are raid announcements to orient yourself to our targets and the events. There are bat phones, meaning that a monster just spawned and we need to go fight it. There's the raid voice channel, so that we can use in-game voice communication, which is often way faster than text and is necessary. It's a raid requirement to be in raid voice. There are a lot of other channels in our Discord for specific camps and activities. We handle DKP on there, discussion for your specific class, DKP auctions. Sometimes important things are handled via Discord direct messages. If you're not on Discord, you're not a raider. Voice comms are mandatory. So join Discord voice comms. Let me pull my Discord over here. In Discord, Raid Voice 1 is usually the channel we're in. Some people are in there right now. If you're raiding, if you're responding to a bat phone and you're hoping to get DKP, you need to be in voice comms. In order to speak in voice comms, you need a push-to-talk key set up. And in order for that push-to-talk key to be read while playing EverQuest, your Discord needs to be in administrator mode. So when you run Discord, your Discord shortcut, run as administrator. That's going to allow your push-to-talk key to work, even if you're playing EverQuest. Most key raid instructions are in voice. If you can't listen, you have to ask permission from the raid leader that you're not going to be in voice. Being out of comms without permission means you're not eligible for earning DKP. We have a live transcription bot in Discord that we can get you set up on if you have any issues. Call out any major action: pulling, bumping, tanking, kiting. Having a microphone is not mandatory, but for some roles it practically is. If you can't call out that you're picking up the monster, then we as a raid force are at a disadvantage. Clear comms equals raid success. Don't speak over the raid leader giving instructions. Silence is better than chaos. Urgent messages only from non-leads. If things are stable and relaxed, of course, feel free to chat, ask questions, joke around, but be ready for business. AFK etiquette. Don't go away from keyboard unannounced. Always notify. Put up the AFK flag in-game using /AFK with an expected duration if you're stepping away. Use voice comms or send a tell if you have a critical role. We understand needing to AFK. Totally fine. but we're not okay with you suddenly being unresponsive. If you're AFK for a significant portion of the raid, especially if you don't AFK flag, then you won't be eligible for DKP. We rely on each other. If you're confused or if you're new, just say so. We're happy to show you the ropes. If you have interest in doing a new job and it's not competitive, if we have spare time, feel free to try it. We'll be happy to explain it. We love people stepping up. If we don't have time because we're competitive, we're in a rush, the monster is breathing down our necks, then try to stick to what you know. You will be held accountable, both good and bad. If you make an awesome play, you'll be praised, we'll all be happy about it, you'll earn extra DKP. If you make a mistake, then we'll try and fix that, and we'll get you coaching. Nobody is flawless. Everyone has made and will make plenty of mistakes. We just strive to improve. Serious issues, like willful disobedience, ignoring raid calls, negligence, incompetence that ruins the game for everybody, right? Getting everyone else killed, could result in a DKP freeze, temporary raid ban, or even guild removal. But if you're doing your best, you'll be just fine. Alright, enough of raider conduct, let's talk about raiding. Raiding in EQ p99. Norath is a completely shared open world. There's no instancing. Everybody wants to kill the best monsters. They want the good stuff, right? Every raid guild knows which monsters are valuable, what they can drop. There's almost always competition. FTE, first to engage, is the rule of the land. Whoever gets yellow text on a monster, right? The first person to aggro a monster, the monster shouts out, monster's name engages Mangbard. The first person to get yellow text owns that monster. If we don't have FTE on the monster, you need to not get on that aggro table, unless you're going to faction tag, because we know the monster is going to be killed by someone else. Many engages are a race, and for valuable monsters, we track their spawn windows, we stare at where the monster will appear. Once it does appear, we bat phone it, and then we race towards it to get FTE. Raiding competition. As of right now, June 2025, there are 6 raiding guilds on p99 Green. Castle Alliance, that's us. Safe Space, we often do joint raids with them. Our main competition are Good Guys and Kingdom. There's also Fires of Heaven and Lineage, they're raid guilds, they're eligible to draft. While actively raiding, players not in Castle Alliance are our enemies. Unless we're actually joint with Safe Space, then they're kind of our team. Do not heal, buff, res, port, or help someone outside of Castle Alliance while we're actively raiding, unless we're instructing you to do so, meaning like we trained them and we need to make amends and res them up. Even something as seemingly trivial as giving someone a Spirit of the Wolf or a TL box on someone from GG or K, you might be helping them win instead of us. If we're not actively raiding, feel free to help anybody you want. There are a lot of raid targets. I pulled this spreadsheet I made a long time ago. It's got the raid target, an acronym we often call him by, the approximate value of the loot that they drop, how often they respawn, what zone they're in. There are a lot of raid targets. There are a lot of things to learn. We do our best to give basic instructions on where a monster is and how to get there, but if you're new, you're going to need to ask for help. The Spawn Timers channel of our Discord lists which monsters are in window, and usually a recent raid announcement will say what targets we're focusing on, what to park out for. Real quick, let me just flick through this on Discord. In Discord, under Raiders Hall, we have raid announcements. Right, here's Byte saying that on 3 days, which is right now, Sleeper's Golems, Lepitheta and Esadera, and bot parkouts of which bot characters to move. In Spawn Timers, we can see what things are eligible to spawn, things that are in window now. So, like the Progenitor in Sleeper's Tomb. He has a 24-hour window. He's 27% through window currently. Right? He could spawn anywhere between now and 17 and a half hours from now. So if you can, have a character parked out near Sleeper's Tomb, if they have a Sleeper's Tomb key, so that you can respond to that. The basic steps every raid. Preparation, buff and park out raid announcement. Tracking while the monster's in window. The monster spawns, pop, and then we bat phone it. We race to get FTE. We pull the monster. We set up to engage, which is like making a tank call, setting up the complete heal cleric chain. Everybody's logging in. They're getting to where they need to be. They're getting set up. They're getting buffs, tank call, CH chain, kiters, train outs, who's going to be first bump. Lots of details here that I'm glossing over quickly, but this happens every raid, so this is what we get used to. We fight the monster. When the monster dies, or as the monster's dying, we take a raid tick, which is everyone's attendance, so that they can earn DKP. We log the time of death of the monster. We handle the loot, and we get out safely. We rebuff, we repark for the next bat phone, the next raid. Okay, a little more detail of each of those steps. Raid prep. A buff and park is when you get characters pre-buffed and camped out near the monster ahead of time, so that you can just log in and be ready to go. Tracking is watching where a monster spawns, so that you can call out and bat phone exactly when it spawns, because it is a race to get there. Racing refers to someone who's in-game, standing at the race line, the nearest legal spot, waiting for the monster to spawn, and running to get FTE as soon as possible. RTE is kind of like racing, but it's people that are ready to engage. They're hanging out, they're possibly spinning at character select, or they might already be in-game, and they are immediately available to help with the pull and get the mob engaged. TOD is for time of death. When a monster dies, we record that time so that we know when its next spawn window will be, because mobs have known repop timers. Okay, talked about these briefly already, but we have raid announcements Discord channel. We have a bat phone channel. Let's look at that. A bat phone looks like this. Lepitheta pop, get to Temple of Vishan. We need pullers, tags, a picture room train out. We need an enchanter to do sieves, because that casts and heals itself. We need clerics. This mob complete heals and gates, right? Some bots might be parked does. We're getting into the weeds here. Each of these buttons is a bot credentials button. If I click on one of these, it will give me the permissions for this bot. Account Castle Ranger 8, and if I click on this little spoiler, it tells me the password. That is the credentials to log into EverQuest and use Goslin, the Raid Ranger bot. Raid chat is the only channel where you're allowed to use the time of death command. The time of death command looks like this. Exclamation TOD, mob name, and the time. Let's see if I can find one. Let's see. In raid chat, bang TOD. Here's a Todd Eilish, right? This means that right when he typed Todd Eilish, it recorded that exact second as the time of death. Here's Talacia doing time of death Lepitheta 4 minutes ago, -4. There are a couple different ways you can invoke this. Todd Eilish, you can specify the exact time. You can say, amount of time ago. So if you con a corpse in game, long corpses have 30 minutes, but if the corpse says there are 25 minutes left on the corpse, then that means you knew it died 5 minutes ago. And again, what that does, recording a time of death, is that it populates the list of monsters and when they spawn next. So we know that Lepitheta spawns every 3 days, and by recording its time of death, it'll be on the list for the next time, so that we can make our plans accordingly. Okay. A wild bat phone appears. If a new bat phone goes out, that means there is a monster that just spawned and we need to fight it. Join Discord voice comms. Usually raid voice 1. Sometimes the bat phone will specify that we're in joint comms with safe space, which is a different Discord channel. But you need to be in voice comms as soon as possible to know what's going on. If you're flexible, using multiple different classes, ask what you can do. Ask what roles are needed. Do we need tanks? Do we need clerics? Do we need an enchanter? Do we need whatever? If you have any flexibility, it's possible that you want to choose what to log into. Log into your character. Hopefully your character is parked ahead of time, otherwise you're going to be asking for a port or popping a gate potion or something. Or you have the option to log a pre-parked bot, right? And again, you have buttons on your bat phone channel that will give you a bot. And those bots are pre-parked near that monster. Playing a bot earns you full DKP. It earns you the ability to bid on the loot if something drops that you're interested in. Will move your character over in time to get the loot after the fact. Playing a bot is just a simple way to be, available all over whichever raid zone we're dealing with. You just need a little extra setup and flexibility so that you're comfortable playing a character that you don't own. So you need to be able to set up the UI ahead of time, and we'll talk about that. Many bat-phoned targets have such a short time from spawn to kill that asking for a port to the bat phone won't always be fast enough, right? If Dane spawns and you're saying, hey, I need a port to Great Divide, and then you run to Thurgoden, Dane could be dead before you get there, right? The way to get to Dane is to either have been parked in Thurgoden ahead of time, or to use a Thurg pot that instantly teleports you to Thurgoden. If you're not at the mob before the raid ticks goes out, then you were late. You don't earn DKP. You did not contribute. Okay, the bat phone goes out, the monster spawns, you log in the game, get to where we fight the monster. This is dependent on where the monster is, right? If it's a monster in Kale, we're doing Vindi, Statue, AOW, King Tormax, we fight them all at the zone line to Awakening Land. If we were doing a monster in Plane of Fear, like Fright, or Terror, or Dread, or Dracolich, or Khazak Thul, right, then you'd be outside the Fear Portal in Fear Rot, and you'd wait until the call is made that it's safe to zone in, because the Plane of Fear is kind of scary. And once you move in, you'll go to the west or southwest wall, wherever camp is. And this could change depending on what's going on. It's usually the west wall. But again, this is why you need to be in raid voice. Temple of Ishan, there are a lot of targets. There are a bunch of different areas. Some of them you can run through if you have Claws of Ishan faction. Right? Some dragons are rooted. Some dragons can get pulled to the entrance. You might be coughed straight to the area of TOV where we fight the monster. If we're doing LTK, you can run through the West Wing if you have good enough COV faction. If we're doing Dozakar, you can run as far as Zem, and then once the train out happens, then you can run past the monsters being trained out to actually go engage Dozakar. And if we're going to like Ishan or Arianar, right, you can go to the north door of the hub, and you can wait for a train out to go that way. But my point is, depending on the target, there's a specific way to get there. There are a lot of raid targets, there are a lot of zones, you have to get comfortable with them over time. If you don't know where to go, ask somebody and say, hey, I'm new, I don't know this place, whatever, follow them, right? If a bat phone goes out for Velkator, I'm asking somebody how to get through there. I don't know Velk's lab very well, I've been playing the game for a year. It doesn't matter, no one cares, they'll help you. Okay, you get to the raid spot, and then you get buffed up. You need junk buffs, especially if the mob can dispel. Your junk buffs should go on first. A junk buff is a buff that you can easily reapply instantly for no mana using a clicky item. You want junk buffs first, then you want Spirit of Wolf and other class buffs. If you are a caster, you want mind buffs from an enchanter, especially Clarity 2. If you tank things, you want max HP. You want an Aegolism, or you want Pot G and Symbol and Bulwark. You need, FOS from a Shaman. DS from a Paladin, if you can get that. You need Haste if you melee, or tank, right? If you're going to swing at the monster, you want Haste, which generally means you want Vogue from an Enchanter. And then if you need resistances, then you want resist buffs. Either circles or resists. Enchanter casts greater resist magic or group resist magic. The proper way to ask for a buff, like haste, is to figure out who can do it for you, /who enk, /tar, the first 4 letters of their name. If this works, that means that they're close enough to buff you. And then you do /tt, tell to target. Slash tell target, Vog please, right? Don't use slash say I need a haste. You're not going to get hastes, or all 4 enchanters we have are all going to give you haste, and both of those things are bad. You don't have to say thank you. Enchanters are giving 1,000 buffs. By sending them an extra thank you tell, you might actually be messing up their RT command to get you back, right? Just ask for the buff, confirm that you got it, and move on with your life. Giving buffs to people, you should respond to proper buff requests as soon as you can. Someone should be sending you a tell. There are rare exceptions to this, like the main tank screaming in raid voice that he needs an Ago. But in general, you don't buff people that are asking and say. You especially don't buff people in other guilds. You don't buff people who haven't asked you for buffs. The buff order can matter a lot. There are a lot of common mistakes where someone thinks, oh, I might as well go ahead and refresh the Ago on the main tank. You could have just made a critical mistake by doing that. When someone sends you a tell for a buff, use /RT. Amazing command. This is target the most recent person to send you a tell. If it didn't work, if /RT doesn't work, that means that the person's too far away, and you can respond to them and say you're not in range, or OOR, or whatever. But if this does work, then you've just been given the target of the person who asked for the buff, and you can just cast it. /RT, cast buff, and then say, here's your buff, right? Or you don't even have to, but I think it's nice to let them know that they got their buff. You can even, and I'll show this later, you can even make a macro that does all of this automatically. It's not foolproof, but it's close. If you can't buff someone for some reason, tell them why. I don't have any paradots. I'm low on mana. I need to med up. We need to be able to who your class so that this system works. I need to know what enchanters are in zone. You shouldn't be roll or anon unless instructed to, like we're trying to hide the fact that we're moving into the plane of fear or something. Feel free to say no to a buff request if you have a reason, but you shouldn't outright ignore somebody. Don't just ghost them. Say, I can't do this, or say, I'm low on mana. You shouldn't be ignoring buff requests from other raiders. The general structure of the raid is in sort of 4 lanes, if you will. There's a raid leader, and the raid leader is trying to make sure the key jobs are happening. These tanking and healing exist on every job, but sometimes there's also specific kiters or pullers that have to do, tricky things. A lot of details under here that I'm not going to go over right now, but in general, the things that happen every raid and the leaders for each of the lanes are all communicating with each other to make sure things go well. You have tanking, a main tank. You have a bunch of clerics healing them, also spot healers, druids and shamans. You have pullers, who are usually monks. Pullers always need so. You have kiters, who are often wizards or mages. They always need so. They're getting TL boxes. Mages can quad DA to become invulnerable for a long time. These are the 4 big jobs that happen in raids. Notably not mentioned is DPS. That's kind of assumed to be happening after the mob is tanked and healed. The rogues and the monks are going in and attacking. Great. Okay. Put the team first. If you've accidentally pulled a monster, control it, or kite it, or die. Monsters are way stronger than players. Adding an extra monster can easily cause enough chaos for a wipe or multiple player deaths. Die if you have to. Don't bring adds to a raid. Drags and reses are easy, especially if it's just one player. Protect clerics and tanks first. If you see a monster and they're aggroed on a cleric, right? If you can out-aggro it and kite it for a little while or tank it, right, and allow it to get stabilized, you might have just made a hero play. Even if it gets you killed, it's better than a cleric dying. If you need something, identify who can help you and send a tell. You died, you need someone to drag your corpse. Rogues, usually monks and rogues, are the ones who typically drag corpses when there's a tricky, dangerous scenario. Who all Temple Vishan rogue. /tell to the rogue's name, drag and res me please, I'm at the Aryan R dropdown, and you consent them. They should be talking to you, saying, oh, I found your body, I got it, no problem. You need a res, If you're near your body and there are clerics nearby, you can just hail your corpse. That's sort of shorthand for, hey, please click my corpse. If you are not in zone, then you can who all cleric in that zone and say, hey, I need a res please, my body is wherever, my body's already in camp. Just asking in general, like in guild chat, I need a res. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you get 3 different clerics trying to click you in the middle of their CH chain. It's just more effective to send a tell to one person, right? It creates an accountability link. Do you need a port? Same logic. Who all castle wizard, right? Who all wizard? Oh, that one's an Akatsuki. Send tell to them, can I go from Great Divide to Bind, please, right? And that way they can either respond to you, or they can say, you know, I'm busy doing something else or whatever. Check in with one person. Don't just try and blast to everybody. It's one thing if someone's advertising in guild chat, I'm porting, then you know who to send a tell to. But it's much simpler to just find someone who can help you and ask them specifically to help you. Quake. Every once in a while, there's an earthquake in-game. It happens randomly, every few days, every few weeks. There's no real consistent pattern. Every monster in the game respawns instantaneously. All the things I said before about spawn windows are out the window. It's a mad dash to quickly and effectively choose targets, mobilize, and engage them effectively. It's like, you know, it's Loot Pinata City. Get in raid voice immediately and buckle up. Common first targets are Dozakar in Temple of Vishan, King Tormax or Statue, which are in Kale, Dane, which is in Thurgoden, Tunair, which is in the Plane of Growth in Awakening Lands, kind of near Kale. Get in raid voice and listen to what the plan is, because part of dealing with a quake is figuring out where everyone else is going and which targets are going to be the easiest to mobilize to and the most likely to result in success and good loot. Alright, character setup. Game settings, files, options. We're going to start by showing where your EQ install folder is and talking about where some key files are. Talk about user interface and keybinds, commands, macros, and camera control. UI and INI setup. First, make sure that your EQ runs in admin mode. So find your EQ shortcut, check its properties, go to advanced, and make sure it runs as administrator. It needs to be able to do this so that it can write log files and update your settings properly. Make sure you know where your EQ files are. Mine are in C, EverQuest, EQ Lite. Files look like this. You should recognize your UI files. Here's Mangbard, for example. This is a character-specific UI setup, and if you want to make this be the default UI positioning for all of your characters, as a simple, fast way to do this, go ahead and take this, make a copy of it, and then rename this to defaults.ini, right? There's already a defaults.ini, so you need to delete that one first. And then once this is renamed defaults.ini, the defaults.ini gets read whenever the game doesn't encounter a UI for that specific character. So then you can sort all of your files here and just delete all of your UIs for everybody. And then when you load a new character, it will have the UI set up for the one character you know is set up correctly, which in my case, in this example, is Mangbard. This doesn't do it for macros. Macros are handled in a separate file. That would be Mangbard _ p99 green ini. This is your friends list, and any specific macros you have are stored in here. Unfortunately, there's no simple way to make this be consistent for all of your characters, and actually you want your macros set up class by class. So what you have to do instead is set up a good Bard set of macros, and then you'd want to rename it to any Bard you'd hypothetically want to log into. So if I know my Mangbard macros are good, right, then I can make a copy of it, and I can rename it to other Bard _ p99. And now if I ever logged into a character named other Bard, they would have their macros set up correctly ahead of time. For EQClient.ini, which contains all of your keybinds and your graphics settings
across all characters, you want to make sure that you have two specific options set. You want vsync equals true, and you want log equals true. And these lines can appear pretty much anywhere under this defaults bracket. Log equals true, vsync equals true. Log makes your .txt log file write to a hard drive whenever you get combat text or anything. This is important for third-party add-ons to read your stuff. And vsync equals true. Make sure that your character floats correctly in case your frame rate is wonky. Sometimes people have levitation issues. Alright, UI and handling tells. Your user interface should cleanly display necessary information. Multiple chat windows with the combat spam separated out, and should have plenty of open screen space for you to see stuff around you. And you need to choose between tell windows or a separate chat box that only displays tells. You pretty much shouldn't ever have your tells mixed in with any other information. So here's my random UI setup for Torpsburg, one of our shaman bots. And right now I have all of my combat spam in one window. I have group chat and XP messages filtered to one window. And then I have main chat with like /say, OOC, and shout. And you can right click and you can filter which types of things go to each window. So you really want to have one window that handles tells, or if you hit Alt-O and you go to use tell windows, you want to set up tell windows so that you get tells to pop up. Let's see, if I do green Torpsburg and say hi to myself, right, here are my tells coming up. But if I hit tell windows instead and then did that, I'd get a tell window box. And when multiple people send you tell windows, you'll get them as separate pop-ups. And some people like this. You can handle one buff at a time and then close them. Some people hate this because you might accidentally close a box and not realize what someone said to you. Let's talk about keybinds. All 10 hotbar buttons can be keybound. By default, they're numbers 1 through 0 on your keyboard. Consider binding several of them to nearby easy-to-press keys like E. I have one of mine bound to spacebar. You can populate these 10 buttons with macros or spell gems or even inventory slots. Let's take a look at it. Right, so if you press Alt-O, you can pull up your options. You have display options. Right, you can also set up your mouse sensitivity. And then you have keybinds. And a lot of these are really important. So hotbar 1, hot buttons 1 through 10 correspond to your hotbar. And you can left click and drag a spell gem directly onto something. So now 1 automatically uses my canny instead of having to press Alt-1, which is a default bind for any of your spell gems. Alt-1 through Alt-8 will cast something. But now just 1 will do my canny, which is cool. And then I can left click and grab a spyglass from my inventory and map it into my 10th hot button, which is currently mapped to space. So I can press 1 and canny, and as soon as it ends I can slap spacebar and I can refresh my gems with my GCD clicky so that I can canny again immediately. Canny, and then spacebar, canny. And this lets you canny dance very comfortably because pressing 1 and spacebar are two very comfortable buttons on the keyboard. You want to think about how best to set up your buttons so that you don't have to click your gems if you don't want to. You can just make nice keybind buttons, and that way you can do everything you need to do quickly and comfortably. So spend some time thinking about how to set up your buttons well and get used to remapping them on the fly, right? If you're doing a specific task, it's possible that you want to change your buttons mid-game. You don't always have to have the same keybinds. So you should get in the habit of knowing where all your keybinds are set and how to change them. I think it's incredibly important that you bind strafe left and strafe right. My WSAD is move forward, move backward, strafe left, strafe right, not turn left, turn right. Because strafe running is such an important skill that you want to be able to do that quickly and easily whenever you feel like it. You can outrun monsters by strafe running. Running forward is 100% speed, but running forward and strafing is like 115% speed. So if you have a Spirit of the Wolf, you can outrun Spirit of the Wolf monsters. Open and close inventory bags, cycle through nearest NPCs, which in World of Warcraft is called tab targeting. Mine is in fact bound to tab. Toggle last 2 targets. is an incredibly important bind. Let's talk about that real quick. If you grab a monster, like this Onyx Skydrake, and then you grab a different monster, you can swap targets between them by pressing a key bound to toggle last two targets. I bound mine to Z and Shift Tab, right? So I currently have left Drake, but if I press Z, I can swap between the two. Left Drake, right Drake, left Drake, right Drake. I can press F1, target myself. Z gives me back this Drake. The ability to swap between the last two targets, it only works if you've bound this key, and it actually enables a bunch of really important tricks in the game because there's a secret last target stored in the game UI that you can only access if you've bound toggle last two targets. So you really need this bound, and you should recognize how valuable it is in some situations. You're picking up a mod rod on the ground, and all of a sudden you've lost the tank target, and then you can hit Z and get them again. One of those things that a lot of people haven't bound because it's not bound by default, and it's incredibly valuable. Tab targeting, to allow you to switch between the monsters that are in your vision, right? I can just mash tab and get all 6 of these because they're all within my character's vision at the moment. And if you wanted to flux a bunch of targets because you're wizard kiting, the ability to quickly swap between targets can be incredibly important. So you need that bound. Cycle through your PCs is not quite as useful, but sometimes it's helpful to grab friendly targets. It's incredibly important to bind assist. So in your socials tab, right, you can make your own macros, the /assist, and having that bound to a key, in my opinion, is incredibly valuable. So if I bind this to this slot, which for me is bound to E, then I can automatically assist. I can tab to grab a monster, and then I can smash assist to see if they're targeting a player, and that way I can quickly heal them, for example, or I can quickly know who's training us. These are the kinds of things that need to be bound for you to be able to comfortably, quickly follow through with them. What other keybinds are important? Paste from clipboard is neat. You can directly bind camera positions. I also bind invite follow if someone invites you to group, or if you want to invite 5 people to your group very quickly. I think that's a good keybind. I have mine bound to \, and then there's my cough macro. And then camera binds. There are several, but I have first person camera bound to G, and then I also have user-defined cameras bound to J and K. So automatically pressing G puts me in first-person camera, and then if I wanted to scroll out back to third person, I just mouse wheel down. And then J gives me a very flexible user-defined camera that you can pivot and look around corners and get a very deep zoom out if you want. There are also other camera hotkeys, like you can hold Alt and press up to make this camera very, very high up in the air. You can pivot it up and down with Alt, page up and page down. It's a very flexible camera if you know what you're doing. And you can pre-bind this. So now G gives me first-person camera, but if I slap J, boom, I have that zoomed out deep camera again that I can then pivot and shift around. So these camera tricks are something that you should practice and get comfortable with, and it starts by key binding the ability to swap between them. So I have G for first person, J for user-defined camera 1, and then K for a second user-defined camera 2, so I can quickly swap between 2 camera positions if I wanted to. Right? Look in front of us, look behind us, look in front of us. And by default, F9 cycles through each of your camera positions. And there are 5 or 6 of them. What else? I like having inventory bound, and all bags is a nice keybind, and then close all bags is a nice keybind. I like having, what other things do we have on the list? Shift up populates previous text. That's in your inventory. You can hold Alt and left click to get a description of an item, and then if you wanted to link it, you can left click and it puts it into you, puts an item link into your box. Most people know how to do this. What else? Macro commands. There are a lot of important commands that you should learn. /who, possibly the most important of all commands, gives you a list of players in game. There are a lot of modifiers and a lot of parameters that you can add to this. All means give you the list of everybody in every zone. You can specify a class. You can specify a specific zone if you know the special name for that zone, like Temple Vishan is, the TOV is Temple Vishan. You can specify a guild. You can specify a level or even a level range, and you can obviously specify someone's specific name. So if I want to know who's in my zone, I can just press slash. I don't even have to put who. Just slash works, and see who's in Temple Vishan. But if I wanted to know if there were any wizards here, slash space wizza. Yep, there's a wizard. If I wanted to know if anyone's in here who's in castle, slash castle, just me. Who is something that you just get used to knowing what kinds of things you can look for. But if you want to get a buff, for example, I need haste or whatever, it's clarity 2, slash space enk. There's no reason to look around. You should be able to who the kind of person that you need to find. So many commands that you could talk about. Slash AFK, slash LFG, slash roll, slash anon. These are different ways to flag your character based on what you're doing. Roll and anon hide what your class are. AFK is away from keyboard. LFG is looking for group. LFG on is incredibly important. You're only allowed to put this on if you aren't in a group. So it very clearly signifies to other people that you are looking for a group and are not in a group, so that people know that you should be invited. If at all possible while raiding, you should flag yourself LFG so that people can easily invite you to group and make it happen. Slash lock gives you your location. Again, most people know this. This is a numerical number here. If you have a proper add-on, like here is nparse maps, slash lock can be used to update this position. So if I reuse slash lock here, my position will update from where I was to now further up. Then I could spam slash lock, and every time the lock goes through, my nparse map updates with my position. So you can actually have an add-on that is essentially an in-game map if you set this up correctly. And then if you could even choose to bind slash lock to like one of your basic movement keys, and then your position would be updating very frequently. If you don't really know the layout of zones very well yet, then this can be incredibly valuable and save you a ton of time and avoided confusion. What else? Attack on off. Assist, we talked about briefly. You can specify assist a specific player's name or even monster's name if you want to know what their target is. If we make a main assist, like a rogue that you're supposed to be attacking their monster, then you can just hardbind this as a macro. Assist that rogue's name, and you can just smash that, and you'll always have their target. Camp out, everyone knows this one. You can instantly leave the game with a slash Q or a slash EX. It makes your character go link dead. This is incredibly important in some situations because if you haven't already aggroed a monster, you won't aggro them if you are link dead. So if you're in a dangerous place and someone is bringing a train of monsters but they haven't aggroed onto you yet, right, then you can Q out and go to character select, and you will probably live if the monsters don't AoE you. Slash cast number, 1 through 8, basically is just fire one of your spell gems if you wanted to put that into a macro line. Slash tar is gain a target of a specific monster or player. Slash tar, a tank's name is super valuable, or a player and then an apostrophe will give you their corpse. So here's Drow dead on the ground, for example. If I'm targeting myself and I slash tar Drow, he's not here right now, but if I tar Drow, I'm going to get his corpse. If Drow was actually here, the player, slash tar Drow would give me the living player, and slash tar Drow apostrophe would guarantee that I get his corpse. So if you're trying to find a body in a pile or whatever, you can add an apostrophe to your slash tar. That's super helpful. RT is an incredibly amazing command. This is get the target of the person who just most recently sent you a tell. So it's respond target. And this is super useful for buffers. You can very quickly get a target of someone who sent you a tell if they're nearby. And slash RT and then buffing them is the way to go. And this is why we recommend that everyone send a tell to someone to get a buff. Slash corpse allows you to drag your corpse or know whether one of your corpses is in zone. You can also do a /who of a corpse. You can consent somebody so that someone else can drag your corpse, /consent and then their name. /loot, if you're targeting a corpse on the ground, you can loot it at range. If you need to find your own body, then you can /tar your own name and apostrophe and then /loot it. There's situations where your corpse is very hard to click because there are a bunch of people around or it's stuck in a wall or whatever. /load gives you a list of UIs to load. It's also a trick to leave an empty corpse without accidentally eating it. So if you have died and you loot your own corpse and you accidentally got all the stuff off your own body and you're like, oh no, I can't get rezzed, I'm going to lose my EXP, you can do /load and you can just load a UI and it makes your UI flicker quickly and it clears all your windows, but it will actually stop you from looting something, and that way you can leave an empty corpse on the ground and still be rezzed and not lose your XP. So there's a neat little trick there. /char info tells you where you're bound. I'm bound in Western Wastes, so if I gated, I would go right outside of TOV. There are more commands to talk about. Say, out of character, shout, group chat, guild chat, people know those. /tell, right, is send a player a specific message. /r is automatically respond to the most recent person who sent you a tell. /tt is send a tell to your current target. So if there's a whole pile of people around you, usually the easiest way to communicate with them is actually to /tar the first couple letters of their name, like poor dead drow here, and then you can /tt hi, and even a corpse, /tt on a corpse will attempt to send a message to the actual player. I don't think Drow's online, he's not, but /tt, his corpse, would allow me to talk to him if he were online. And if there's a whole bunch of people around you, because we're raiding, then /tar their name, and then /tt is often the fastest way to talk to somebody, rather than trying to click them in a pile of people. So /tar is super useful. /duel, which actually enables a bunch of funny tricks like hammering off of each other. /invite is to get someone into your group. /disband is to kick someone out of your group or to leave the group yourself. /make lead, or even just /mak, turns someone in your group into the group leader so that they can invite further people. A lot of times it's important to know the grouping mechanics so that you can change targets easily, because one of the important aspects of having someone in your group is that you can click their name and get their target from infinite range. So, mages, their ability to cough you across a zone has to do with you being in their group. And this is an important mechanic in a lot of raiding, is the ability to group with somebody at range, get them in a group, get a target on them, cough them across a zone. So knowing all of your grouping mechanics ends up being important. Doability is a macro line for you to fire one of your abilities page things. So if I wanted to fire slam, now that I've bound it to 1, I can do ability 1, and then I'm attempting to slam. And this is important for when you set up your own macros. You might want like a rogue evade macro. It's going to fire a doability 1 where 1 is bound to hide after doing an attack off. /follow is auto following. /loot we already talked about briefly, but you can loot a corpse. You can make corpses not display by doing /hide corpse all. You can make them reappear with /hide corpse none. And then you can even have each corpse have a special flag, whether or not it shows or doesn't show, based on whether or not you've ever touched it, with /hide corpse looted. That's cool. If you want to roll dice, you do /rand with a number. If you ever get stuck in terrain, /rewind will kick you out of stuck terrain. /output, either /output inventory or /output spellbook, will make a .txt file that lists all the stuff on your character and your character's bank. So you can actually check the stuff in your bank without going to a bank by doing a /output inventory and then finding your EQ files. And similarly, if you ever just wanted a straight list of every spell in your spellbook, you can make a TXT of that. Sometimes neat and helpful. Let's talk about macro programming. Macros are very flexible. If you know all the available commands, you just right-click an empty button in your socials, and you can set up your own custom macro of up to 5 lines. There's a small delay between each step of your macro firing, so sometimes you don't want a macro, you want a hard keybind, especially like FTE spam is a great example. If you're a wizard and you have a flux staff or you have a thin bone wand and you're trying to tab target and you're spamming tab E, trying to hit a monster as quick as possible, you don't want any macro. You don't want /tar monster. You need to be using tab target because the keybind just triggers faster within the game. There's no delay associated with it. But we can set up some examples of macros. The standard cleric complete heal chain macro looks like this. It's a 5-liner sit off, cast 1, where 1 is your complete heal, or whichever gem slot you put it in. For all of our bots, complete heals in the first slot. And then in out of character, you say CA001, or whatever position you are in chain, CH dash dash, and then this %T is a macro variable that whatever your target is, it puts the text of that into your macro chain. Then you also have redundant cast 1s in case your first one fizzled. So you can edit the 001 to be whatever you are in chain. If you're a ramp healer, you might type in ramp 1 instead. And so this 5-line macro would go into each of these 5 lines here, and then you would bind this to a key by left-click dragging it and applying it to a button. And then you have a CH macro that will fire and do these 5 things in order. Make you stand up, try and fire a complete heal, yell the exact macro standard, and it's important that you adhere to this standard. Let me show you exactly why. So sit off, cast 1, in this case because I'm a shaman it's going to be cannibalized, but that's okay. CA01 CH dash dash %T, cast 1, cast 1. And then if we bound this to 1, for example, right? I'm sitting, I target myself, I press my macro, I canny. I say in out of character, right, CA001CH Torpsberg, and you see this bar that came up. This is an add-on that I have that's called CCHPM, and I recommend that clerics that are into a visualization of the complete heal chain get something like this. CCHPM, you can download it off of our Discord server. Basically, it gives you an automatic visualization of complete heals as they're rolling. So this is a 10-second long bar, and every time someone fires a complete heal macro, it throws that cleric's number onto the bar and it slides from right to left until it lands on the tank. And this doesn't make sense because I'm actually firing Canny 4, but if I was firing a complete heal, it basically shows you the chain, right, of each cleric firing. And so this is one of the reasons that we have combat logging on, and why we have a very specific macro standard, because this 001 and the Torpsberg target, it populates CCHPM so that whoever is running the chain gets a really nice idea of where there are gaps in the clerics firing their complete heal. Okay, another example of a macro. Here's a rogue evade macro. It's a 3-liner. /attack off, fire hide when it's mapped to ability 1, and then resume attacking. Rogues automatically have a special skill that when they hide and aren't attacking, and their hide is successful, they lose some threat on all monsters. And so this allows them to do a ton of damage and not pull aggro. Here's an example of a bump macro. If you're a bard, you can stop song, but in general it's just /disc and the name of your discipline. Right? So if you're a rogue, it might be nimble. If you're a ranger, it'd be weapon shield. And then you'd call out that you're using it. So here's, shout weapon shield, and this is my target that I'm attacking. And then you'd turn attack on, because usually when you're bumping, you're also trying to get threat on the monster. So if you were a ranger, you'd fire this macro, your weapon shield would go out, and then you start spamming flame lick to get threat on it. And you'd be invulnerable to the monster for like 20 seconds. Here's a buff response macro, /RT. Alright, so if someone sent you a tell, I need C2, or I need whatever, torpor, right? /RT gives you them as a target. You stop sitting. You wait just a beat. This is like, a tenth of a second. You cast whatever the slot is of the buff that you're macroing here. And then you say to them, /tellTarget, this is the buff I'm sending to you, whatever, strength or, clarity 2 is incoming. And if you set up this 5-line macro and someone says, hey, can I get a C2, and you press this before anyone else happens to send you a tell, then you will automatically retarget them, send them the buff, and tell them it's incoming in just one button. And this can simplify your life if you're an enchanter who feels like they get flooded by buff requests. At least this can handle anyone asking for C2. So you can make macros simplify your life if you get used to how to set them up. We talked a little bit about camera views. You can set a keybind to first person so that you can reset your camera. Mouse wheel out to third person from first person, and you can use your right mouse to pivot your camera around. You can set different camera setups with F9, second camera, third camera. This one raises up and down. This is user-defined 1, user-defined 2. This is like follow cam, and then we're back to first person again. Each of these can be bound directly in your keybinds in keys camera. First person overhead, chase, user 1, user 2, tether is what they're called. You can also do Shift T, which is portrait title mode, and this is actually also a very flexible camera. It's by default, it kind of looks behind you. So like if you were running away from a monster, you can just Shift T and look behind you real quick, and Shift T again, and then you're looking in front of you. So if you ever just wanted to check your 6, Shift T is a neat way to do that. Let's see. If you're bound sight on a corpse, Shift T is a way to give you a flexible camera. You can also just use a user-defined camera, which I've bound to J here, or you can go F9 3 times from first-person cam. And this user-defined camera is the one that's enabled all of the neat pivots and swivels. By holding Alt and pressing up-down, or page up, page down, you can swivel your camera in a lot of different dimensions. Legal tools and add-ons. Alright, there's a lot of stuff to talk about here. I'm just going to kind of skim over them. Allowed third-party add-ons, they only interact with EverQuest by parsing your log.txts. They're not allowed to directly read client data or play the game for you, right? MacRequest and ShowEQ are cheats. Clickbots, like AutoHotkey, cheats. Things that directly read the memory of the game client are cheats. However, things that just read your .txt files that are automatically parsed by your game are not cheats. So we have add-ons like Ninja Looter, and Ninja Looter is how we take raid ticks and how we do DKP bids, and it looks like this. It is, I don't really want to explain all of the ins and outs of Ninja Looter, but basically, whenever you do a who in-game, it makes a list of all the players in zone, and it flags the ones that are in Castle Alliance so that they can properly have raid ticks. When people send you credit tells with 2 T's, credit, that gets listed here so that you can do bot pilot DKP flags. When items drop and are linked in OOC or whatever channel, you can choose to bid them out, and the DKP bids are handled in these windows. So that's one completely legal add-on, and all it does is read things out of your log.txt. CCHPM, I talked about briefly. It looks like this, and it is looking for OOCs in this format: CA, number, CH, tank name. You specify what your log file location is, and whenever a macro of that format fires, then it's going to automatically put this bar visualization up so that you can see how the clerics chains are firing. Gina. Peghead has an awesome guide about how to set up Gina. Gina is a custom text trigger firer. You add your character. If we put Torpsburg in here, and you enable your castle add-ons or whichever Gina triggers you've set to fire, then whenever certain actions happen in game, you're going to get notifications of how long the effect lasts. So I'm hoping that if I land a torpor on myself, I'm torpored, and it lasts for 24 seconds, and this bar ticks down as my torpor is healing me. And so if you ever wanted to know how long certain effects happen, you can set up Gina triggers, and Gina is completely legal because all it does is read, right, this you begin casting torpor, you fall into a state of torpor is what triggered this timer. And there are a lot of different things that you can set up in Gina, like monsters casting on you, dragon roars, certain monsters dying. A lot of different things can be set up. It's very flexible. If you backstab a monster and you want, crit backstab's number to appear up on screen, you can set that up via Gina. Super flexible, super cool. Gam Parse is an add-on that you can use to check how much damage each tank took, or how much DPS each person in the raid did, or healing. So it's a parsing tool. Pig Parse, similarly, is a setup for timers and auction helper, and I think it also does the same kind of stuff the Gam Parse does. I personally have never used Pig Parse. Nparse, I briefly showed. It has buff timers in it, but it also has this third-party map overlay that essentially is a quick setup of what each zone looks like, and is generally pretty flexible. And then every time you do a /lock in game, it estimates where you are on the map. So you can use this in order to check your position. There's even a way to set up other people and their position in your guild so that they all appear on the map at the same time, and you can try and move around and coordinate each other. OBS. I'm currently recording this using OBS. OBS is a screen recording tool. People will run OBS while they're raiding in order to make sure that other guilds are behaving properly, essentially. If someone drags a bunch of monsters onto our raid, and then they, get killed, and then all of a sudden the monsters are killing us, we got trained by them, and if we were competing for a raid target, then you need OBS of that to ensure that they concede the monster for not playing the game properly. So the quick setup for OBS is you download OBS, you set up the proper window capture. Right now it's capturing my entire left monitor, but you can instead specify for it to only capture your EQ application by setting your sources up. And then you want to set up a replay buffer, which is in settings, you'd look at output, replay buffer, and right now my replay buffer is set to 3 minutes, or a maximum of 512 megs. And then when you press replay buffer here, it's going to be permanently recording the last 3 minutes of stuff that happened. And then you can set up a hotkey to dump out the 3 minutes that you've saved if something bad ever happens. Oh, we just got trained. You smack your OBS replay buffer, and then you get the last 3 minutes of recorded screen saved as a video, so that you can then upload it to YouTube or share with the guild and say, hey, we got trained by Kingdom and they need to concede this monster, and I have OBS of it. So OBS is incredibly useful. There's an add-on called Middleman, which is a helper utility, p99 login middleman.exe. This enables you to directly connect through to the EQEMU servers, which p99 uses. Sometimes people will say, oh, the login server is busted, and then you can use Middleman sometimes to help bypass that and fix it. Alright, let's talk about piloting a bot. You can get login creds to a shared castle raiding character through several ways. That's all through Discord. You can look for a bat phone, and the bat phone will have buttons. Each of these buttons corresponds to a bot's login credentials. You can also use Discord commands like bot request, the bot's name, if you know which bot you want, bot request class, and then the class and the location. And then you could also do bot request class and then their bind location. If there aren't any currently available parked bots, but you know that a bot is bound nearby, and then you'll just log in and gate them. So let's check real quick how to do each of those. First off, let's say a bat phone goes out. Vindy's our lifeblood, succulent prince. I want to play Grumpy Berg. I click this button, right? And then bam, I get credentials. Castle Cleric 26. This little spoiler here will give me the password. I don't want to put that on my my video here, but if I click it over here, I can see what it is. So then I'm in game, and whatever I'm doing, as long as my character's safe, I can /Q. And I go back to login, and then I can type in and find my creds. Right? And I have an IP block for 30 seconds because I /Q'd. But this 30 seconds by /Qing immediately, the 30 seconds gives you time to find the credentials for the bot that you want. And then you just click login. This is the fastest way to switch characters, is to /Q, deal with the temporary IP block, get your login creds, and then at most it took you 30 seconds to find a new character. And now I'm logging into Grumpy Berg and he's in Kale. So the other things I could have done is I could have done /bot request grum, and here's Grumpy Berg, and I would click on that and I would press enter, and then it would give me the same creds. And because I just clicked on the bat phone button, it checked out Grumpy Berg and applied me as the pilot, right? So here's the same creds. Instead of pressing this bat phone button, I used the same command, and now it's logged. Mangbard's marked as the pilot. And you may not be able to log in. I'm actually already logged in. I could have instead done bot request class and said that I want to play a cleric, and I want the cleric to be in Kale. And I'm pressing tab, or I'm clicking on the options as they populate so that the form is filled out correctly. And this will give me a not checked out cleric that meets my criterion. Here is a raid cleric in Kale, Hamburg, right? So what's happening when I do all of this is it's checking bots out and giving them to me. So there are a couple things. We have a list of bot status. There's a Discord channel that shows you which bots are currently checked out and to who. So this channel should be updating every time a bot is requested to me. There's also a Castle spreadsheet that is linked in raid chat that has all of the bot information and then who is piloting them. You can get a list of the bots that are available and potentially who's piloting them through a couple different means. And then you can log into them, and then when you're done using them, you should be parking them. So back in Discord, let's say I'm done doing whatever I'm doing with Grumpy Berg. I do /bot park Grumpy Berg. By default, it releases them wherever they were previously logged. So Grumpy Berg was a Kale cleric. I didn't move him because I'm not even logging in. And I parked him, and he's still parked in Kale now. So then I'm done with Grumpy Berg. And then if I wanted to get a list of all the characters that I have that are checked out to me, I can park them. So I want to park Goldberg. I want to park Hamburg. It looks like I also have Torpsberg because I was just on him a minute ago. So I can park these bots by using the Discord command. Bot park Torp. Bot park Gold. And that's the fastest way for you to be able to help the raid, is to log a character that is nearby, that is the role that we need. And so part of our raid prep is parking out the bot force, and this gives you characters at your fingertips for you to help wherever we need to fight. Let's quickly go over some important raid mob mechanics. The CH chain is when we have a string of clerics that are each rolling their 10-second complete heal on a tank. It has a specific delay so that the CH keeps the tank alive while staying mana efficient. You need to coordinate a string of clerics with a specific CH delay. FTE, first to engage, engaging the monster first, which claims it for us. If a different guild has FTE on a monster, then we need to not get dirty on it. Kiting and train outs, which is dragging monsters around without the intent of fighting them. Dirty tag, which means putting threat on a monster to pull it out of a train, but you get dirty on the entire train in the process because of social aggro. You need to clean yourself. You need to stop being dirty by flopping and queuing, if you can feign death, or cycle camping, or gating out of the zone. You need to get clean on the train, otherwise the train is coming back to you when it stops being trained. A clean tag, on the other hand, is putting threat on a monster when it isn't near any other monsters. You didn't get dirty on anything, so that you can stay in zone and safely fight the monster just by itself, which is the goal. Bumping is using a melee discipline and threat to temporarily tank a monster without being healed. Rangers are the best at this with weapon shield, but monks and rogues and bards can all bump. It's really important, especially if a tank suddenly goes down, that someone be ready to bump it so that we can set up complete heals on a new tank so that that tank can safely tank and not die. Slowing a monster is incredibly important. It saves a ton of cleric mana and stabilizes the heal chain. If a raid mob can be slowed, it is a big deal to get it slowed. So you need to know about whether or not it is a belly caster, which means that it resists all spells always, unless you're in melee range, with the exception of the unresistible debuff spells, which are Oos, Tash, and Mallow. Bard does Oos, Enchanter does Tash, Shaman and Mage do Mallow. These are unresistible, and they ignore the bellycaster mechanic, but trying to land a slow, for example, or any nuke on a bellycaster will automatically fail unless you're in melee range. So the slow team, getting a mob slowed is a big deal, and coordinating that involves Oos, Tash, Mallow, and then running into melee range if you need to. Threat and aggro, incredibly important mechanic in general. The more damage you deal, the more debuffs that you do to a monster, the more threat you have, and the highest threat means that they are going to try and kill you. There are a lot of details to how the top threat works that we'll cover some of the basics. Rampage, the earliest person to get on a monster's aggro list will take ramp attacks. That isn't the top threat. So a main tank won't also take ramp unless there's no one else as an eligible ramp target. So the way that a secondary tank sets ramp is like shooting an arrow ahead of time, and then it doesn't really matter how much threat they have on the target. The fact that they are early on the aggro list means that while they're in melee range, they'll take ramp attacks. In Rage, a lot of raid monsters, when they reach 10% HP, they will automatically riposte all frontal attacks, which means that the main tank needs to stop swinging, which means that all of the other melee DPS are in danger of pulling threat, and then the mob will flip around and potentially riposte all of their attacks. You just need to be very careful about threat while Enrage is on. It fades in like 10 seconds, just be careful. We always call out watch Enrage. Talk about basic aggro mechanics. What puts you on a mob's aggro list? Doing anything harmful to them, right, will put you on their aggro list. Proximity aggro, while KOS and in line of sight, you can obviously body pull a monster by being too close to them and being kill on sight. If you are sitting, then you automatically pulse direct aggro to nearby KOS mobs. So if a group of mobs are being trained out past you, you need to stand, because they will notice that you're sitting and they will kill you, even if you didn't do anything directly to them yet. Sitting pulses direct aggro. What takes you off of an aggro list? You have to leash them by being very far away for a while, which is like 1,000 locks, or you have to die, or zone, or camp out, or feign death. And feign death, well, raid mobs, you can feign death and not actually completely fall off their aggro list. If you want to ensure that feign death gets you off an aggro list, you should feign and /Q and then log back in, and then you will have successfully essentially cycle camped. For a mob to give a new yellow text FTE, every player on its aggro list has to fall off the aggro list. Everyone that they are currently engaged on, they either need to leash, or die, or zone, or camp, or FDQ, right? Only then will a monster reset and be ready to put out a new FTE. right? So if you are on another guild's FTE by accidentally attacking their monster somehow, right, you will extend their yellow text until you zone die or camp. So if you get dirty on another guild's monster, then you need to fix it. Threat generation in general, a melee swing generates threat regardless of whether or not it hits. So the weapon ratio is really what matters for melee swings, but also procs. So spell damage is threat, 1 spell damage is 1 threat, 50 spell damage is 50 threat. And then disabling effects like stuns, mezzes, slows, and snares. These cause threat that scale with the monster's max HP. Generally speaking, for raid mobs, it could cap at a max of 1200 threat. So like if a shaman tries to land a slow on a monster, a raid monster, that's a 1200 threat cast. If a wizard casts a Draft of Jiva, which is a mini stun, 0.0 second mini stun, and a couple hundred damage, it's the 1200 threat from the stun and the damage on top of it. So you can combine potentially multiple of these effects together to determine how much total threat an action generates. Talk about a couple advanced tricky mechanics. We talked about strafe running briefly. Strafe running helps you dodge monsters. You run faster than the monster. For some reason, the way that detection works, the strafing just makes you harder to hit. You can outrun most mobs, even if you aren't speed buffed, as long as you have a nice strafe running line. Spirit of the Wolf is a speed enhancing buff. It lasts 36 minutes, and you can have it on even indoors. You have to cast it outdoors, but you can have Spirit of Wolf on when you enter a dungeon. Kiters and pullers essentially need to have so, or they can't do their job. You need to be able to outrun monsters and maneuver correctly. So even in Temple of Vishan, right, being able to get a TL box and take a bind out to Western Wastes to get resewed and then come back in and get caught back happens all the time. Spirit of Wolf is just incredibly important so that you can maneuver properly to do your job. Clicky items will refresh your spell gems. I showed you this a little bit with Torpsburg. You can use a GCD clicky, and then your spells will recover faster without recovery time. Most casters need to learn this. It needs to be second nature for you to be able to do your actions as fast as possible. It depends on the exact skill, how quickly it refreshes, and whether or not, like canny, for example, you can canny dance with no delay, essentially, between each cast of canny. But Call of the Hero is a 12-second cast, and it has a hard-coded 15-second recast. So even if you GCD fresh, you need to wait 3 seconds between casts, or Koth will just fail. And so you kind of need to learn the details of each skill, of whether or not you can directly GCD cycle them, or whether or not there has to be a delay. Vendor recharging items. If you have an item that has charges, you can sell a fully charged version of it that has max charges to a vendor, as long as the vendor has space for you to buy the item back. And then when you sell additional copies of that to the vendor, the vendor automatically charges all of them. It remembers the first one that has all of the charges, and then every extra version of it that you sold on top, they all magically have full charges now. And so when you buy them back, they'll all be charged. We use this for like Thinbone Wands and Forlorn Totems of Rolfrun Zek. There are, Invis Rings. There are a bunch of different, charge items, and the ability to vendor recharge them is basically like a key important mechanic. And these types of items are super valuable for the fact that they can be recharged for a pretty nominal amount of platinum. You can reload your UI with /load if you accidentally looted everything off of an XP corpse, and you can still res that. What else? TL box and res box. It lasts for 5 minutes on your UI, and you can click it whenever you want to. So you can have a wizard give you a TL box, and then you can go do really dangerous stuff, like pull monsters or run a train out. And you could have 50 monsters chasing you, and then you got to where you wanted to bring them, and then you take your TL box, and then you're out of there safely. This, in combination with being bound directly outside of Temple of Vishan, is a critical raiding mechanic for us to do some of the crazy stuff that we do to safely displace monsters, so that we can engage only the key targets without having to deal with a bunch of the trash around it. Small races can put their face up against a wall and see through it. And you can drop an Eye of Zom through the wall, again by being small. Or if you're not a small race, you can shrink yourself or double shrink yourself. And once you get small enough, it enables you to see through the wall by putting your face up through it and go in first person camera, or drop an Eye of Zom through the wall. When you drop an Eye of Zom through the wall, it falls below the world, automatically appears at the zone safe spot, and then it gives you vision, because that's how Eye of Zom works. It gives you vision of where the Eye of Zom appears, so that you can invite people to your group if they are at the safe spot. So this is a key mechanic for mages to be able to bring more players to wherever the mage is. Find a wall that you can drop an Eye of Zom through it, group up with them, cough them to wherever you are. We have mages set up all over TOV. You can set up mages at the top of Sky Shrine to get to Yellonak quickly. It's just like an absolute, critical movement mechanic to be able to bring people through the dungeon. Corpses can be bind-sighted if you use the target last target hotkey mid-cast. So you can start a bind sight on a legal target, like another player, or your own pet if you're a necromancer or something, and then you can swap to a corpse if the corpse was your prior target, mid-cast using target last target, and your bind sight will land on the corpse, which is not something that's supposed to be able to happen, but the client allows you to do it, and then all of a sudden you can track around a corpse. So you can intentionally set up a corpse, or if someone else has set up a corpse, you can use that as sort of a vision pylon so that you can track a monster, for example. By pressing duck, you cancel a spell cast, and by pressing duck again, you stop ducking so that you can cast again. So if you ever wanted to cast, if you ever want to cancel your spell mid-cast, you just duck twice very quickly. You can also spam duck, and it changes your character's collision box briefly. And every time that change happens, your clip detection goes away for just a split second. So if you spam duck, you can actually move through a pile of people very easily. And you can stack 50 people all on top of each other if you just one by one spam duck through each other into the same spot. Okay, DKP, Dragon Kill points. This is how we determine who earns loot. So essentially, DKP is getting paid. When you attend a raid, you will have your attendance taken via a raid tick, the Ninja Looter application that I briefly showed before. If you're in zone, then you're automatically on the person's /who that took the raid tick. If you're not in zone for some valid reason, you can send a credit tell, right? /tell whoever was running Ninja Looter and took the raid tick. You say to them, credit, 2 T's, whatever happened. I died, I zoned out early, I was teleporting people, some valid reason of why you deserve to be on the raid tick, but you weren't on their zone-wide who. And then if you were piloting a bot, or if you're piloting someone else's character, but you want DKP credited to you properly, then there's a different credit tell, /tell raid tick person, credit bot pilot, my name. So credit bot pilot Mangbard, while I'm playing Torpsburg, it automatically tells the Ninja Looter that even though I'm playing Torpsburg, Torpsburg is being piloted by Mangbard. Mangbard needs DKP. And you can send a combination of these, one after the other. I'm out of zone, and I'm playing a bot, but I deserve credit, and that way your attendance is properly recorded. Loot. If a monster drops loot, each item will be bid out after we stop fighting. The bidding message is in /awk, so if Fiery Pants dropped, you'd see a Ninja Looter yell out /awk, Fiery Pants out for bid, and then you would link /awk, Fiery Pants, I'm bidding 7 DKP. And then other people might say, oh, I think Fiery Pants is worth 12, I bid 12, and eventually the bids will stop increasing, and someone will get a grats message. Grats to Mangbard, you won Fiery Pants for 17, and then you'll be charged 17 DKP, but you'll having received the Gratz message, you'll have looting rights to walk up and get the fiery pants off the monster. Under no circumstance should you loot an item without first seeing your name in a Gratz message. That's called ninja looting, and not ninja looting the application we use, but ninja looting meaning you stole some shit. If you're confused about any of this, just ask. We're ready to help you. Raid supplies. Check out Castle Quest on Discord. Castle Quest is a subsection on our Discord channel that has pins of how to get bonus DKP. So if you click on this link, right, Castle Quest is a way to ensure the raid force is ready and geared for various encounters. There's a checklist of items and stats that once your character achieves them, if you post a screenshot that has proof of that, you get a DKP bonus. So it's a really nice way to know what kinds of items are important for raiders in general and for your class in particular, and get set up to raid properly. Things like a WC cap, Leatherfoot Raider, OT hammer, which is a worker sledge mallet, which procs and brings you to the over there. A Thurg pot, which is an instant click pottery potion that gets you to Thurgadin. Spirit of Wolf potions, in instant viz clicky rings or a Larrikin's mask, a clicky GCD item, Thinbone wand for instant range tagging, Reaper the Dead to cast an instant complete heal, Shiny Brass Idol is a self DA that you can also give to other people in case they need to do an important DA, quad train out or whatever. Tanks, they need Forlorn Totems for aggro generation. They need a bow and flight arrows to establish ramp. They need wart potions in case they're in healing danger. Resist gear. Magic resistance, generally the most important. Fire resistance is next most important, and then cold resistance after that. I think the only resistance Castle Quest check is Castle Quest 4, but in any case, raiders should work towards having nice resists. Monks and other pullers definitely want stalking probes, and then depending on what kinds of reagents your class needs to cast their best spells, you might need paradots or emeralds or pearls or bone chips. Some things to know for the future. How to do certain FTE races, like in Kale, how we race King Tormax or Statue, in Sleeper's Tomb, how we race MOTG or Prague, or TFA, the Final Arbiter, how to do a Dane race, how to race for the targets in Fear, like a Dracolich or the Fear Golems, Fright, Dread, Terror, how to race Gornair, etc. These, the ability to quickly get FTE is often the difference between us having the monster and us not having the monster. And you can earn DKP for the time you spend on the race line. You can earn a big bonus of DKP by actually getting FT on a monster. This is how the sausage gets made. Gotta know how to pull the monster. In general, how to be on a tagging and pulling team. How and where we pull each monster. This is something you learn by practicing and just knowing the layout of the zone and doing it a couple times. It's not very hard to do once you have a little practice under your belt. Kiting, generally a wizard job, and then quad DA trainouts. These are some advanced maneuvers that are incredibly important, especially in like Temple of Ishan. Coughing, using a GCD clicky. I mentioned before, Cough has a hard-coded 15-second delay, but if you don't have a GCD clicky, then the Cough gem doesn't refresh for like 25 seconds. It's an enormous difference in how quickly you can chain Cough people by whether or not you know how to use a GCD clicky, but also have that 3-second delay so that you can Cough people as quickly as possible without it fizzling. Gina timers for key mob abilities and your key rolls. Again, you should check out Peghead's video about setting Gina up. Warrior tanking. Generally, you use the defensive discipline, but there are certain monsters where defensive is almost worthless, and evasive is the correct discipline to pick it up. How to safely pick up a monster. How to make sure that heals are landing on you before you start attacking a monster. so you don't just get threat on a monster and die instantly, because that is not a successful tank job. Threat generation and aggro values, and the timing of how to make sure that you're doing max threat if you want max threat, or how to avoid doing threat if you're trying to do max DPS and not pull and kill yourself, or if you're trying to slow the monster, how to understand when you can safely go in for another slow attempt while the tank is generating threat. Setting up CCHPM or some other CH chain visualization, knowing the chain delay of how quickly to heal so that your tank doesn't die. In general, I think everybody should practice piloting a cleric bot and should get up a CCHPM or equivalent chain visualization and just get a feel for how the chain works, because there are so many encounters where a cleric, good cleric pilots are the difference between success and failure. Some quick Discord server links. Our Castle Discord is discord.dg/castlegreen. That's what I've been showing you this whole time. Castle Safe Space Joint Discord is called Safe Castle, and we need to get you a link to this from our main Discord. This Discord link probably goes stale after some amount of time, so you just need to ask, can I get a link to join? AIH is its own Discord, an interesting hole. This is a test server that runs an instance of NORAD, of EverQuest, and it gives you some GM commands so that you can automatically zone around or warp to different places or repop the zone, summon items, and essentially it lets you test and practice all of the tricky raid maneuvers without any risk of messing up your actual EQ character. So you can mess around with practicing quad DA trainouts without the worry of getting your mage killed, because you can just summon new items and stuff. Tunnel Quest, I think this is a really cool channel. Tunnel Quest is a Discord server that allows you to list items that you're interested in buying or selling, and then you automatically get Discord pings if someone is trying to sell or buy that specific item. So, for example, I'm looking for Rings of Dizak, so I can set up a Tunnel Quest watch that if anyone ever pings that they're selling a Ring of Dizak in East Common Lands, then I get a Discord DM that someone is selling here at Crystal Spider Eyes, and that way I can keep track of items that I'm interested in buying. Some final nifty links. We have castledkp.com is our own DKP website. This is where you check to see how much DKP you have and any historical DKP actions, like what raids you've been on or what items you've ever looted. And Castle DKP looks like this. This is my character page, Mangbard. I have almost 1300 DKP, and I can see my various adjustments or the items I've gotten, etc. You needed to set this up before you ever became a raider. The p99 wiki has a lot of information. I'm sure you've been there. Pigparse is a cool website that allows you to quickly check the price of things. I want to know how much a Crystal Spider Eyes has been selling for lately. A little less than 1,000 plat. So when someone says, oh yeah, I'll sell you a Crystal Spider Eyes for 1,500, I know that I'm getting hosed. I showed you this briefly before, but there is a Castle Bots info spreadsheet, and this lists the current status and a bunch of other relevant information about the bots in our guild. And so you can list, we have clerics in a bunch of different zones. They're parked in Temple of Ishan, they're parked in Kale, etc. We've been working on some written text guides about how to handle different encounters. So we have a Castle Raid guide, we have a Castle Raid playbook that is encounter by encounter. These are definitely worth checking out, and they're being constantly improved and updated. And some final advice. Raid success is about knowledge, preparation, fast response, and communication. Ask questions when you're unsure of what to do. Protect the team, not yourself. Getting yourself killed is generally not that big a deal, but training everybody is a real problem. We win as a unit, or we lose as a unit. we're a team together. It is just a game, and we're here to have fun. It's also more fun when we're winning. Practice makes perfect. So yeah, just do your best and try and figure out how best to win as a team. I hope you enjoyed Raider 101. My name is Mang. My in-game name is Mangbard, although I'm often piloting bots. And yeah, by all means, send me a DM if you have any questions. And I'll catch you in game. See you.